What kind of decade was it? The United States of America started out the millennium posting a budget surplus and enjoying world peace. It ended with a deficit in the trillions, a shattered economy, fighting not one but two wars, and afraid not only of terrorism but of epidemics and a global meltdown. Yep, that's the kind of decade it was. President Bill Clinton ushered in the first decade of the new millennium and the final year of his presidency, sitting on a surplus of $559 billion. Clinton's Vice President Al Gore and Texas Governor George W. Bush won their respective parties' nominations, and ultimately, results of the presidential election had Bush winning the electoral votes despite Gore earning more popular votes.
It has been reported that he played a pivotal role in urging the other justices to end the Florida recount, thereby handing the 2000 election to George Bush.
People say that that decision was not based on judicial philosophy, but on politics.
I say nonsense.
Was it political?
Gee, I really don't want to get in. I mean, get over it. It's so old by now.
Court owe no apology whatever for Bush versus Gore. We did the right thing, so there.
See it? Yes, I saw it. It just blew up. A big explosion. People started running. It was just chaos everywhere. People jumping out. People just kept jumping and jumping and jumping. And you could still see they were alive because they were flailing around.
On September 11th, 2001, 4 jumbo jets were hijacked. The world as we knew it would never be the same. President Bush invaded Afghanistan on October 7th to hunt down Osama bin Laden and crush al-Qaeda. This was despite the fact that none of the alleged hijackers were from Afghanistan and in fact hailed from Saudi Arabia. Managed to drive the Taliban from power, and the Afghan people voted for Hamid Karzai, a man who was allegedly a consultant for Unocal. The company has since been acquired by Chevron in 2005. Next year, Colin Powell makes the case for war against Iraq at the United Nations. Undeterred by the evildoers, W expands the war on terror by attacking Iraq in March 2003. By December 13th, former President of Iraq Saddam Hussein is captured in Tikrit by the U.S. 4th Infantry Division. U.S. soldiers were accused of abusing prisoners at the infamous Abu Ghraib prison. In the November elections, Kerry shocked the world by losing to Bush, who now would serve as a lame duck president with a green light to continue his global crusade. With over 100,000 soldiers on Iraqi soil, the U.S. admits there was never any threat from WMDs.
The main reason we went into Iraq at the time was we thought he had weapons of mass destruction. It turns out he didn't.
On August 23, 2005, Hurricane Katrina formed over the Bahamas and crossed southern Florida as a moderate Category 1 hurricane. At least 1,836 people lost their lives in the actual hurricane and subsequent floods, making it the deadliest U.S. hurricane since the 1928 Okeechobee hurricane. Thousands die. George Bush doesn't like black people.
George Bush doesn't care about black people.
George Bush continues to reject funds for stem cell research, and Saddam is executed. Tough year for former heads of state. 2008, the bubble in the housing market bursts. Hedge fund losses add up. Banks shut down. Bear Stearns goes bankrupt, while Lehman is acquired for pennies on the dollar by JP Morgan. Wall Street panics, lays off thousands. Bush signs bailout.
You knew what the banks were doing, and yet we're touting it for months and months. The entire network was. And so now to pretend that this was some sort of crazy, once-in-a-lifetime tsunami that nobody could have seen coming is disingenuous at best and criminal at worst.
There's a market for it, and you give it to them, and I think
there's a market for cocaine and hookers.
Well,
And I run for the presidency of the United States because that's the party America needs us to be right now. As president, I will end this war in Iraq. We'll have our troops home within 16 months. I'll close Guantanamo. I will restore habeas corpus. I will finish the fight against Al-Qaeda. Our moment is now.
In November, Obama is elected the first black president. Chicago, New York, the U.S., and the entire world celebrate his victory. The next year, he wins the Nobel Prize.
It took them a couple of elections to do it, but what the Democrats built for themselves over the last few years culminated in 2008 with a Democratic president, a Democratic Senate, and a Democratic House. What did they stand for? What were they made of? It turns out what they were made of was historic.
President Obama signed his first bill into law.
Democrats in Congress have been trying to get this equal pay law through for nearly 2 years. Today it became a reality.
The Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act for women.
Today, the president signs the bill imposing new rules on credit card companies.
Today, President Obama signs a bill that gives the Food and Drug Administration unprecedented power to regulate tobacco.
That is the imminent passage of a hate crimes bill that it would make it a federal crime to commit an assault based on sexual orientation.
The president has been pushing that would extend government-sponsored health insurance for about 4 million uninsured children.
A major revamping of how college student loans are going to be handed out for years to come.
The signing of the Edward M. Kennedy Serve America Act. The bill triples the size of the country's national service programs, which are known as AmeriCorps.
Signing into law America's largest economic recovery package ever.
It's as close to universal health care as America will likely ever come. Almost 2 years now after the entire banking system almost collapsed, President Obama signed the financial reform bill into law.
All told, these reforms represent the strongest consumer financial protections in history. In history.
The 111th Congress may be remembered for banner legislation such as health care reform, financial regulation, and the Recovery Act. But in our view, the real successes were the passage of bills that affected nearly every veteran in America. The record of legislative achievement of the last 21 months was not designed to win the midterm elections, and it will not win the midterm elections. The pendulum will swing back toward the Republicans, and we will go back to divided government again. The legislative agenda of the last 21 months was policy, not politics.